Welcome, football fans, to a deep dive into one of the most polarizing figures in the beautiful game today, Lamine Yamal. Not long ago, his name was whispered with awe, a prodigy emerging from La Masia, Barcelona's fabled academy. His rise was nothing short of meteoric. From a humble, gifted teenager barely old enough to drive, he was thrust onto the biggest stages, donning the iconic Barcelona jersey, dazzling millions with his audacious skill. He was the golden boy, the next big thing, the future of Spanish football. But something shifted. The narrative, once solely focused on his prodigious talent, began to twist. The universal praise started to curdle, replaced by a growing chorus of criticism, resentment, and even outright hate. How did a player who, by all accounts, should be universally adored for his raw ability, become one of the most talked about and often one of the most disliked figures in world football? Today we're going to unpack this complex phenomenon. We're going to explore the multifaceted reasons behind the animosity directed at Lamine Yamal. Is it pure footballing rivalry? Is it an issue of attitude and arrogance? Or is it the unfair burden of unprecedented scrutiny placed upon a teenager in the unforgiving glare of the global spotlight? Join us as we try to understand why everyone, or at least a very vocal segment of football fandom, seems to hate Lamine Yamal. Let's kick things off with perhaps the most obvious and visceral reason for the animosity: the intense, often bitter rivalry that defines Spanish football. Lamine Yamal plays for FC Barcelona, and in the world of La Liga, that simple fact is often enough to ignite fierce opposition, particularly from fans of Real Madrid. The El Clásico rivalry isn't just a football match, it's a cultural phenomenon, a clash of ideologies that transcends the pitch, and in this arena, every word, every action, every slight is magnified 1,000-fold. Yamal, for all his youth, has not shied away from fanning these flames. Here we see him right in the thick of it, engaging in fiery exchanges with seasoned veterans like Dani Carvajal. This isn't just a young player getting caught up in the moment. These are moments that are immediately replayed, dissected, and used as ammunition by rival fans. His willingness to directly confront and engage in on-pitch battles only solidifies the perception that he is an antagonist in the eyes of Madridistas. But the rivalry isn't confined to the 90 minutes of a match. It spills over into the digital realm, into social media, and into pre-match banter. Yamal, like many young players, is active online, and he hasn't been shy about expressing his confidence, which, to many, borders on provocation. Think back to the El Clásico. Reports swirled about his comments on Twitch, essentially talking trash about Real Madrid before the big game.
¿Te pone más marcar al Madrid o a Porcinos por Ibai?
A ver, al Madrid ya le he marcado varias veces, así que a ti.
Claro, ¿pero vas a marcar el domingo o no?
¿Tú qué crees?
No lo sé, es que es difícil el Bernabéu.
Sí.
Bueno, para el Barça no, ¿eh?
La última vez que he ido... ¿Cuánto? 0-4.
O sea, ¿tú crees que este domingo también 0-4?
No, yo no he dicho eso.
Ah, vale, vale.
Pero puede ser.
When Barcelona then suffered a humiliating loss, the narrative was ready-made. Media outlets, and certainly rival fans, were quick to highlight how Yamal was embarrassed after his bold claims fell flat. This wasn't just a loss for Barcelona, it was a personal setback for Yamal in the eyes of his detractors, a moment where his perceived arrogance was punished. For many, the dislike isn't just about his actions, it's about what he represents. As one Redditor eloquently put it, He wears the Barcelona jersey, and that represents something a lot of people hate. It's an extension of club allegiance. If you bleed white, you're conditioned to view anything associated with Blaugrana with suspicion, and a prodigious talent like Yamal, who appears to revel in the rivalry, becomes an immediate target. There's also the deeper, almost philosophical argument about essence and culture. Former players and pundits, particularly those with strong Real Madrid ties, have weighed in. Ivan Zamorano, for instance, suggested that Yamal doesn't embody the essence or the class and culture that a club like Real Madrid traditionally represents. This isn't just about football, it's about an imagined ideal of what a player should be, and Yamal, through his bold confidence and willingness to engage, is seen by some as falling short of that historical ideal, especially when contrasted with the perceived gentlemanly conduct often associated with Real Madrid's heritage. This constant framing within the rivalry creates a perfect storm for antipathy. Beyond the red mist of rivalry, a significant portion of the criticism aimed at Lamine Yamal stems from his perceived attitude and arrogance. This is where the line between youthful confidence and objectionable conceit becomes blurry, and it's a line Yamal is often accused of crossing. Every great player possesses an innate self-belief, an unwavering conviction in their abilities. But when does that belief transition into something less palatable? For many critics, Yamal's actions and demeanor frequently stray into the territory of arrogance. Perhaps the most iconic and indeed controversial example is his signature king celebration. He forms an L with one hand, a Y with the other, and a number representing his neighborhood. On the surface, it's a tribute to his roots, a nod to where he came from. But in the highly charged atmosphere of football, it's widely interpreted as a personal declaration of royalty, a self-anointing gesture that screams, "I'm the king." While Yamal and his team have clarified that it's a homage to his neighborhood, Rocafonda, using L for Lamine, Y for Yamal, and often linking to the 304 area code, the damage for many is already done. The initial perception of arrogance sticks, especially for those already looking for reasons to criticize him. It's a classic case of intent versus reception. He might mean one thing, but the global audience, particularly rival fans, interprets another. Beyond the celebrations, his verbal pronouncements also play a significant role. Yamal is not shy about stating his lofty ambitions, wanting to win multiple Ballons d'Or, confidently asserting his place amongst the elite. To some, this is admirable ambition. To others, it's hubris, especially from a player so young who has achieved so little, relatively speaking, in his career thus far. He's also shown a willingness to engage in talking smack, not just on the pitch, but sometimes off it. While this might be seen as confidence or part of the modern footballer's persona, it can easily be construed as immaturity or a lack of humility. The football world, particularly its more traditional elements, often values modesty and quiet professionalism. Yamal at times directly challenges this expectation. This perceived attitude has even led to comparisons and warnings. Some pundits and fans draw parallels, albeit cautiously, to other prodigies who struggled with balancing immense talent with off-field shenanigans or perceived lifestyle issues. The new Neymar tag, for example, isn't just about skill. It subtly carries a warning about potential pitfalls, about a player whose incredible talent could be derailed by external factors or a certain temperament. The concern is that his strong personality, combined with immense fame at a young age, could lead him down a difficult path if not managed carefully by the club and his inner circle. Reports about his father's perceived influence and occasional disciplinary issues, e.g. late arrivals to training, only serve to fuel these anxieties amongst those who want to see him succeed, but fear he's heading for trouble. Now let's pivot to a perspective that offers a counter-narrative, yet paradoxically also explains some of the animosity. This is the argument that Lamine Yamal is simply a teenager, burdened by an unprecedented level of scrutiny, and that much of what is interpreted as hate is simply him acting his age under an unbearable spotlight. Think about it. At just 18 years old, Lamine Yamal has already played an astounding number of professional matches. Some estimates suggest he's already clocked over 130 professional appearances. Compare that to legends like Messi or Ronaldo at the same age. Their workloads were nowhere near this intense. This sheer volume of high-pressure football would take a toll on any player, let alone a teenager whose body is still developing. This immense workload inevitably leads to physical strain. We've already seen concerns about his recurring pubalgia, a notoriously tricky injury often linked to overuse. When a player this young is already battling such issues, it sparks a fierce debate. Is it simply bad luck, or is the club pushing him too hard? This debate then feeds into the public perception, with some blaming the player for his perceived recklessness, while others blame the system for exploiting his youth. The chronic groin injury, known as pubalgia, is a perfect illustration of this point. Reports from sports traumatologists suggest Yamal has been playing at only 50% of his capacity due to the constant, disabling pain. The injury, often caused by the kind of explosive, high-intensity movements that define his game, is worsened by a congested match schedule. The fact that he was reportedly struggling with this pain during a critical match like El Clasico further fuels the argument that he and the clubs, Barcelona and the Spanish national team, have not done enough to protect his long-term health, essentially running the risk of burning out their most precious asset, as sadly happened with his former teammate, Ansu Fati. Amidst this intense physical and media pressure, his reaction to opposition fans becomes telling. When facing a barrage of whistles and boos, such as in the Champions League match against Club Brugge, Yamal's response was not one of submission or sadness, but of defiant confidence. He was asked about the jeering, and he offered a spicy, almost arrogant-sounding perspective. "If the opposing fans are whistling at me," he declared, "it's because they know I'm an important player." To his supporters, this is the mentality of a champion, a young man channeling negativity into motivation, much like the path followed by legends like Cristiano Ronaldo. But to his critics, this is another dose of arrogance. A teenager too big for his boots, refusing to show humility even when struggling with form and injury. It's an action that feeds the perception of his ego. He's also had to publicly fight against the noise about his personal well-being. Following weeks of intense speculation, including reports he was sad or unhappy at Camp Nou due to the pubalgia, Yamal hit back directly. He categorically dismissed the claims, stating, "There has been a lot of talk about my groin injury, about me being sad, and it was all lies." This direct engagement with the media, while refreshing in its honesty, is also risky. It highlights the immense emotional and mental burden placed on him, a burden few can truly comprehend. It reveals a teenager forced to manage not just a football match, but a global public relations war. He is facing the paradox of the modern prodigy. He is celebrated for his success, but actively punished for the natural byproducts of being a confident, wealthy, and overexposed teenager. He is expected to behave with the wisdom of a veteran while still being exploited for his youthful energy and marketability. Finally, we must consider the external factors, the constant noise that surrounds a player of his profile. These elements don't directly cause the hate, but they amplify it, providing a fertile ground for negativity to flourish. The modern football ecosystem thrives on controversy. A player as talented and high-profile as Yamal guarantees clicks, views, and engagement. Every slight stumble, every bold statement, every injury concern is front-page news. This unrelenting media focus means his flaws are magnified while his quiet, hard work is often ignored. This machine ensures that any nascent dislike or criticism is immediately amplified into a widespread narrative of hate. There are also darker undercurrents at play. In a highly competitive global sport, sheer jealousy is a powerful motivator for detractors. The fact that a teenager is earning astronomical wages, achieving worldwide fame, and playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world is, for some, simply too much to stomach. It's easier to tear down a gilded youth than to simply admire his talent. Furthermore, a small but important segment of the online discourse hints at the tragic reality of socio-political bias. As one commentator noted, the intense, often disproportionate criticism of Yamal, a black kid from a disadvantaged neighborhood with Muslim parents, carries an ugly edge. While football may strive for universality, its online community is not immune to prejudice. For some, the animosity is unfortunately rooted in something far uglier than a football rivalry. Even his club's handling of his fame and workload is a point of contention. While his former manager, Xavi, praised him as the chosen one and a potential genius, this sort of language, however well-intentioned, puts an almost unimaginable weight on a teenager's shoulders. The coaches and club management are constantly battling the pressure to play him for results versus the need to protect him for the long term. This internal conflict spills out into the public sphere as fan debates and media rose, always centering Yamal as the object of scrutiny. So we return to our original question. Why does everyone hate Lamine Yamal? The answer, as we've seen, is not a simple one. It's a toxic cocktail brewed from the fiercest football rivalry on the planet, where he acts as an unapologetic antagonist. From a perceived arrogance born from youthful confidence that rubs traditionalists and rivals the wrong way, and from the immense unfair burden of being a teenager whose every move is dissected by a global media and fan base, jeopardizing his body and his mental health, the hate Lamine Yamal receives is less a judgment on his character and more a reflection of the intense, polarized, and often unforgiving world of modern football. He is simultaneously a victim of his own prodigious talent and an active participant in the rivalry that fuels the fire. What we are witnessing is the collision of the ultimate hype machine with a raw, confident, and still maturing human being. Whether the criticism is fair accountability or simply the unfair targeting of a generational talent is ultimately up to you. What do you think? Is the animosity towards Lamine Yamal justified, or is he being unfairly targeted by the rivalry and the media? Let us know your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of football.